You are listening to the ReRACEables Podcast.
Give you a nice little detour.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the ReRACEables Podcast. I'm your host, Tom. I am excited tonight. It's a mega leg night. It's a mega leg recap. It's a mega recap. And I can't do it without my two favorite mega leg people, mega leg enthusiasts, Josh and Nicole. Welcome in, everybody.
Mega hello.
How's it going?
I think we actually finally had a really nice episode.
I'm gonna say best of the season thus far. It was finally we're getting some challenges that are actually entertaining to watch. That can't be done in like 2 seconds or take 5 hours. Things that are entertaining. I want to see people falling. I want to see people struggling. I want to see people on the verge of passing out. I want to see it.
Verge of taking 4-hour penalties potentially.
Yes.
Getting full speed decked off their feet in bubble soccer bubbles.
All I ask for. Is that too much?
I don't believe so. Josh, is that too much to ask for great challenges like this?
No, it's definitely not too much to ask for. And I agree. I do think it's been the best episode of the season, with the asterisk of confining by the rules of what this season is entailing, which is still kind of a bummer, but I'm going to put that aside and I'm going to say this was a good episode. And I'm really excited as the strategy is really starting to come out. As we said last week, getting rid of the no chancers. Now we're actually starting to see people think about gameplay and think about their relationships and what their strengths and weaknesses are.
The big major takeaway, or should I say mega takeaway from this mega leg was exactly that, Josh. It was about strategy. And we saw it in the form of alliances. There's no name for the alliance, but it's ultimately the Angie and Danny alliance, which consists of Angie and Danny leading the charge, and they're literally followed by Amber and Vinny and Rod and Leticia. Thoughts on this alliance? Thoughts on literally the strat? Let's start with this alliance and think about it from the leader's standpoint. Is this the best move for Angie and Danny at this stage of the race?
For Angie and Danny, I'm going to say yes. Angie is by far the weakest player out there.
Goodbye.
So you are the weakest link. So he is dragging her along.
But he's doing it so nicely.
He's a nice boy, but still, he's dragging. She's dragging. So they need any help they can get. And especially in the game of don't be last, this is only benefiting them. I don't think it's totally benefiting Amber and Vinny.
Well, hold on that thought. Josh, is this alliance the right move, the right strategy, the beneficial strategy best suited for Angie and Danny?
I'm going to say a yes and a no. I know that's not really an answer, but I think they probably would have been out of the race if Angie had to continue trying to figure out that puzzle. So in that case alone, yes. But I also think later in the episode, they were being hindered by waiting around for people or trying to do those meets and such. So that, or even the navigation, right? I mean, he made no mistakes and was just bringing people like Rod and Leticia along, who we also remember were not very good at navigation. And so in a pro and a con way, but overall, I think that there are still weaker teams than the three of them. And so it's helping them and keeping them alive.
I see the point you're making, and I will agree that there is good and bad. I think the bad is that in the game of The Amazing Race, it's really hard to shake people, right? Unless you play the other good part where you realize what your weaknesses are, aka Angie. You bring in other strengths in numbers. You work together to not come in last, and you take other people down in the process. And we saw them box out Sonny and Busy, Yvonne and Melissa, and we'll talk more about that later. But I think the reason it's the best strategy for them above all is that Angie is the weakest person. She has extreme limitations, and Danny knew that coming in. And he's saying, this is our weakness, and so we're going to have to play a certain way. I don't think it could be working out any better. They've made two solid allies with two teams that are really solid in the race. Those people are literally crying to help them. I think it's brilliant. Going back to Nicole, you mentioned why you weren't so enthusiastic about the prospects of the alliance for Amber and Vinny.
No, I think that of the three teams, they are the strongest team. I think that Amber got too emotional with it, and then she waited 2 rounds worth of people going around in the race car and solving their puzzles for them, only to get to the next challenge where they were playing soccer and only 2 teams could play at a time. The other teams went ahead of them.
Right. Rod went ahead of Amber. Angie went ahead of Amber. Again, we didn't see if Amber allowed that to happen, but
The way that it was edited, it looked like they all arrived at the same time,
definitely.
and yet the other 2 teams went ahead of them.
And we definitely didn't hear anything like, oh, Amber, you should go first.
No, but we also didn't see Amber being like, what the heck, guys? I helped you get here. Why didn't you let me go first?
Right. Shout out to Kelly from 45, Survivor 45. What the hell, guys? When she got voted out.
Yeah.
I agree. We saw them at the top of the pack for a lot of the season, and they are starting to show their weaknesses, especially with their relationship to each other. But I think they probably could be doing better on their own. But it is an alliance. You know, there are times that it is really helpful to have someone who is really good strategic gameplay wise, Danny, and really good navigation. Because who's to say that Amber and Vinny aren't going to get lost at any one of these things, or be perfect, or know that you should stay inside so that other teams can't get to trying the meets challenge. But what I would actually say is the team that's benefiting most from this alliance is Rod and Leticia. They, if I were to get into an alliance with anybody on The Amazing Race, not saying it's a good idea, but if I were to do it, I would want to know that I can outrun any of them in a race. Yeah. Because if we all get there together, we are going to win every single time if that's the case. And Rod and Leticia, I think they're the most athletic. And they would get there. And they are probably the weakest of all 3 groups. And so by being in this alliance, just keep coasting.
I will say this too. This was a big Amber driving the boat episode. Amber did the first roadblock in the rally car. So Amber was in control of the puzzle and completing the roadblock. And therefore she was in control of helping other teams. Vinny, we hardly heard. We didn't hear any of his 2 guns in this episode.
And I was shocked that when she stayed back to help the other 2 teams,
Angie and then Leticia,
I couldn't believe that he wasn't chirping in her ear like, Amber, let's go.
Right. We didn't see that piece of it. It's almost as if there was like a waiting area that he was in, right? And because she did the challenge and she hung in the area where the competitors were.
Like, was he still not allowed to chime in because he wasn't partaking in the challenge? Is that why?
Probably. And maybe there was like a designated area because she was still in the helmet. She was still in the rally car outfit. Yep. I couldn't believe she stayed as long as she did to help. And crying.
Arguing with Angie.
Angie was literally like, what did she
Go win the
Go
race.
ahead. Yeah.
go in it, Amber? Like stared her, in the deadlights of her eyes, like, go win the race. Listen to your mother. And she just like, I can't do it. Like,
She was a mess.
unbelievable. And then for her, like, we cut away and Angie does well, and then we cut back and she's sticking around to help Leticia too.
Mhm.
My jaw was on the ground, Josh.
I agree.
So the last one, let's round this out. Rod and Leticia, Josh, you talked a little bit about it. They're benefiting most. You're in on that idea?
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
I still think Angie and
Danny.
Danny are benefiting the most because they need the help the most. Rod and Leticia, I think they could hold their own if necessary. They could, at least
I
at this point in the race.
To counter a little, I think that Rod and Leticia, if I could see how they're going to get eliminated, it's going to be a stupid mistake. I don't think they're going to. And what is keeping them in this race right now, in my mind, is Danny's brains. Danny knowing how to play this race and making the right moves, and Rod and Leticia are just going to keep coasting.
Right. If this was Survivor, Danny is running the show, orchestrating the votes, doing all the dirty work, and he's just got his group to vote along with him in a voting block. But in the end, the people like Rod and Leticia, and what I'm worried about for them is that the more you follow, the more you just rely on one other person. The moment that they decide to play their own game, the moment they decide to not help you, to shut you out, could be the moment where they find themselves in traffic, not knowing where the hell to go.
Yeah.
And if there is some longer drive and Angie and Danny, maybe their strategy is, oh yeah, go ahead. Even that, knowing that maybe that's the way to lose them, is actually letting them go ahead. If you don't get the reps on these first few legs of making your mistakes, figuring out navigation, and navigation becomes such a part of this race, when you're left on your own, you're forced to run your own race, it's going to be potentially your undoing.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on from that, but sticking with the alliances, we see them later on in the episode at the second detour, where What's Your Beef, which was a 14-piece literal cow part meat puzzle, which every single team did.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
Disappointed we didn't see the fingerprints. That looked kind of cool.
But it also looked really hard.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to see people struggle with it.
We only want to see failure and adversity here on the ReRACEables podcast, so you can rise above it, right?
Yeah, I know, it looked cool. I took forensics in high school. I want to see it play out.
But what was the right choice?
The meat.
And it's not even close, right?
No, yeah.
That goes back to what we've been talking about this whole season, is that these have been very outer balanced challenges.
Totally.
Every single challenge we see, it's always like there's an easy one that you should have done.
So at the What's the Beef 14 cut, only 3 tables available for 3 teams to work on the puzzle at once. We see the alliance of Angie and Danny, Rod and Leticia, and Amber and Vinny on full display.
Mm-hmm.
We see them literally catch Sonny and Busy and Yvonne and Melissa out of that puzzle area. And Danny literally orchestrates, come on, let's go. And then boom, they literally sprint to that area, knowing that they can then just commandeer the whole thing, work together, get through the puzzle, and then collectively move on. And 6 heads are better than 2. It was actually like somewhere a Survivor strategist is clapping it up. And that I know I was.
It was amazing that given they had a 6-person alliance, the challenge just so happened to be designed in that way. It was perfect for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I thought by putting Danny and Angie so high in my rankings. Is Danny's a super fan. He's smart, and I do agree that Angie really is a
Liability.
a liability. Yeah. But I will say that this is what happens when you know the game. When you're smart and you can have good gameplay, you get far in the Amazing Race.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it was a master class of that exactly that challenge and how to literally box out two other teams and pass them. Shout out to Danny. That was really awesome. As much as he was conducting a kindergarten class, this is this meet, holding it up like it's a children's story for all the other teams to see, which I thought was pretty funny. He couldn't have done it by himself. It wasn't like he went in there and knew, all right, everybody, follow all 14 of my steps, right? Rod and Leticia actually finished the puzzle first. Rod came over and was like, oh, put that meat over there, baby. And then put this meat over there, baby. Come on, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this puzzle together, baby.
Yeah, I mean, strategy wise, I think we even saw Yvonne and Melissa and yeah, and Sunny and Busy. Didn't they say like we're each going to take half and then we'll work together to get it? That's also a really strong strategy that the three alliance didn't think about.
And that's what I wanted to. I'm glad you brought it up. That's a good segue. From this great strategic play by those three teams, they literally shut out two teams, Sunny and Busy, Yvonne and Melissa. But in that creates a new alliance.
Yeah.
A new partnership between Sunny and Busy and Yvonne and Melissa.
However, I think it'll be short-lived. I think it's just for the purpose of this specific challenge, given the circumstance they were in.
And I know
I
that
don't think we'll see
because
this carry through into another leg. I just think that these two teams have a different mindset. They're more individual players.
I just don't think they're that great of strategists either.
Probably also true.
yeah, I mean, you could see it as soon as Yvonne, Melissa, and Sunny and Busy had a plan that they were going to each take half. They're going to go in there. They got into the challenge and started to do it. And the first thing they said is, "Hey guys, you want to work together?" To Danny and Angie, right? And so clearly they're now trying to run their own race. They were trying to get in with someone else, which means I don't think that their alliance is actually strong with each other.
And it was interesting too to really see Angie finally be able to put the foot down, shut down their requests for help, shut down her son who wants to help everybody else,
Yeah.
and literally like force them out of the challenge area.
So I'm proud of Angie.
Yeah, give it up for
that.
Angie. Shout out to Angie. We've been crushing her a little bit, but shout out
But
to
she
Angie.
handled it well, saying, "Oh, I really don't know. I let Danny take the lead with that." I wonder if because this season has been such a strong theme of alliances,
Right?
if that then influenced how they designed the last season, which was really the season that came after this season, in which they installed a new rule where they would have to choose ahead of time which team they wanted to U-turn.
I think it's a good point, and I think that concept works when there's alliances because you're trying to break them up. You're trying to like install some animosity in the game. But last season, I remember that happening and being like bummed because it was just like, oh, they're all nitpicking on the team that's ahead, and it didn't really cause much chaos at all. But I do think that Nicole is onto something about them seeing this year and trying to make changes for the year after.
It's a good point. Because you'd think, again, going back to the previous point about Sunny and Busy, Yvonne and Melissa, they go into this break, and that's two teams. There's two teams at the top, Juan and Shane, Ricky and Cesar. That's four. The others is three. Maybe they like are literally bartering, beg, borrow, and steal to try to get votes. Like maybe that's how they were kind of playing it out. Like in the scenario of this season, what could it look like in a future season? And maybe that's kind of where the game is going.
Play it out. Play it out. Right before this leg, everyone has to vote. I actually think everyone's voting for Ricky and Cesar.
Mm,
That's it. Every team is voting for Ricky and Cesar because they've been at the top every single week.
true.
Or what if they say, you know what, Sunny and Busy, they keep ending up near the bottom and then somehow they creep up, but they're always kind of in the bottom. What if we just set them down? Because we know they're weak, and let's just get them out.
So it really becomes a question of, do you attack the team that's in at top, Ricky and Cesar, who have second, first, going into this leg, or a team at the bottom?
Right, because
And
you're
just
not
put them
gonna
in.
you're not gonna put it on Rod and Leticia, who are a middle of the pack team.
Can't put it on us, baby.
It makes no sense. It would be a waste. It's a throwaway.
It's a throwaway to put it on a bottom team. A bottom team's not going to win the race. A bottom team's not going to beat us. If we're racing right now,
But
Sonny
a
and
bottom team, if you put it on them, then it's them, not you, that leg. Don't be last.
no, I think
How are you disagreeing with this, Josh?
I'm disagreeing with it unless it's running. If it's in the middle of the race and there's a team behind me, yes, I'm knocking them down. But if it's before the race and there's no animosity and nobody knows who voted for who, I am attacking that team at the top because I'm in first place. I'm not going to be in last place.
You're wrong.
Well, thinking back to last season, which was really filmed after this current season, I believe the team that got the U-turn vote casted on them was Stephen Annalee,
Yep.
who was this
Stronger team.
stronger team. So based on that, I think Josh may be right. I think Ricky and Cesar would probably be the target. And I think even Juan and Shane, who even though they're right at the top too, would have been like, yeah, let's do it to them. And then we could be, or we could ensure ourselves first place maybe.
Sonny and Busy aren't a threat. Yvonne and Melissa aren't a threat. They're going to go home in the next 3 weeks either way.
Yeah, and this is a chance to maybe knock down and maybe knock out a Ricky and Cesar.
With no one knowing anything of who you voted for or how, right? Because that's what the hard part is about the other U-turns. If you U-turn somebody, you have to put your face right on there, and you're putting a target on your back.
I miss that part of it. Is all right, you want to knock someone out, you're gonna plaster your face so that they can see who did it to them.
Yeah, me too.
I like that.
And I don't think we saw who voted for who.
We didn't see them knowing who voted for who. We watched them.
They all admitted it.
Right.
That terrible board in
Yeah.
like
Terrible. Speaking of the top, we have a new first place team. Shout out to Juan. Shout out to Shane. We have a new team at the top. We spoke last week on the pod about Juan and Shane saying to the camera how they were a first place team. They just hadn't had that result. And I was the one who stood here and said, they are a first place team.
Hear ye, hear ye.
Hey, they are a first place team. And my guys, Juan and Shane, they got it done. Good for them. They wanted to run a clean race, clean leg. They did. And they beat out Ricky and Cesar fair and square. Really impressed by them. I think they have totally now cemented their case to be right there at the top as the favorites alongside Ricky and Cesar.
shout out Tom. Good work. Good work.
Aha! Thank you.
I think they deserve this win. They had a really good leg. They were very smart and I think exhibited a lot of self-control, especially in moments like when they're outside the soccer stadium. And I forget if it was Juan or
Yeah,
Shane.
Juan was the big soccer
Juan
fan.
was a
Shane
big
knew
soccer
that.
fan, right. And so you could tell he was itching to be able to play soccer in that stadium. And he said, you know what? Strategically, it's not the best move. And he let Shane do it.
Well, and Shane knows he's not as dynamic. He literally
Right. Shane knows his weakness, that he may need the other one to do more puzzles and memory, things like that. So he's like, I got to do this one.
Right.
So I think it was smart. I think they had a good combination of strategy, but also ability to complete all the challenges this leg.
Yeah, echoing that. I mean, they're still in a Spanish-speaking country. They speak Spanish. Juan is a pilot, and he had to do the course of mapping the ground plan of where you drove. Like the challenge was set up for him. The team that we knew as the most athletic team running this race, doing the most athletic challenge. I felt like this course, this episode was made for them to dominate, and they did. They stepped it up. They used their brains, they used their skills, and they crushed it. So they totally deserved it.
From beginning to end, at the first detour, the Boladero, no problems. They were able to throw the little lasso around the whatever around the bull. They got out.
That was the lamest looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. This plywood cutout of a bull just like moving across, probably from somebody like pulling a rope on the other side of the
They
camera.
showed that.
Absolutely ridiculous, like so stupid. I thought we were gonna get a real challenge. You could do that in my backyard. You don't go to another country to do that. Are you kidding me?
Real bulls being lassoed.
Something.
Yeah, I did. I wanted them to go chase it. I wanted them to be roadies. I wanted them to have the flags. I want to see it. I want to be a part of the country. I don't want to just do this in a remote area that has nothing to do with any culture or seeing anything. That's not what this race is about. That's not this gameplay. Don't cut, like I said, I can cut out a plywood bull in my backyard. Do something that's actually exciting and has to be in that one location. That's why we enjoy the zip lining. That's why we enjoy interacting with the locals. That's why we want to see the areas, not this stupid plywood shit.
Give us more experts.
Yeah,
Yes.
like where were the gauchos? Give us the
I
gauchos.
want gauchos.
Where are the gauchos?
I agree.
Those bulls were like the equivalent of that vote U-turn board.
No.
Just saying.
Not as bad.
Anyway, back to Juan and Shane. From that to like we talked about the rally car, the puzzle, no problems there. I was really impressed with them. They win $5,000 each.
Solid.
Pretty nice. I like that prize.
That's my favorite prize.
Really?
Then you can go anywhere.
I know, but it's a big menu. As Josh would say, a blank sheet is not as attractive as a. But finish the line for me.
Oh, it's just exciting when that whole trip is planned for you and you get to go across the world somewhere versus getting a check. Because if I get $5,000, it's great, but maybe I don't want to spend it. I'll keep it in my savings. Maybe I'll get some extra food one day, and then it just starts to dwindle down. No. Give me a massage. Fly me to Panama. Let me enjoy it.
I want to go to Panama. I want to go to Australia. Why are we in Alabama? Shout out season 8 mother, the Italian mother. I would definitely like a trip to Singapore, which is what Ricky and Cesar won last week over the 10 grand.
We'll get
Just
you one.
Thank you. Speaking of Ricky and Cesar, I mean, they're right there. It's not like they weren't right at the precipice of winning a 4th straight leg. Instead, they finished second. So they have a second place, first, second place. Still an impressive run. I still think they are easily the co-favorites, if not the favorite in the race.
One thing I want to note that impresses me so much, and it is a peeve I have of the season, how we have starting 2 teams that leave at the same time. But think about this. All of those first place wins by Ricky and Cesar, they should be ahead of the second place team by a lot. And then the 3rd, 4th, 5th, even more. And so they keep getting kind of knocked down and equalized. And yet somehow they are still destroying this race and pulling ahead of everybody. And as Tom likes to say, out of 100 times they run this race, I think they could have come in first any one of these times, 75%.
And I love their competitiveness. That really stands out to me. I think that they have a tenacity at each challenge. They're thinking through the problems. They're thinking what's going to work best for them. I loved Ricky, even though it took him, what, 4 tries to complete the roadblock at the rally car. He's in the rally car. He's trying to trace it with his finger, like in the actual car. Maybe that wasn't the best strategy, but he's thinking about how to best do it in real time. And you didn't see that from other people. You saw them hanging on and clenching for dear life or sucking down water to prevent themselves from passing out. I just think those little details will make a big difference and keep those guys all the way to the finish line and definitely a top 3 finish.
I like the strategy during soccer where he figures out,
Yeah, Cesar.
all right, I just have to knock everyone down, and then I'll be able to have a clear path to score a goal.
And he had such joy in his voice. I realize that I'm heavy and I can just run into them and knock them all down. It's what he said, which was hilarious.
Yeah, it was good because nobody else thought of that.
Shout out to Rod because
Rod is he's doing his football thing where he
Cannonball.
barrel through people no matter what. And I don't think it was because he thought of strategy. I think he was barreling through no matter what.
he did have a strategy. His was, y'all ready to get this party going?
Yeah.
That was his strategy. And
Did
then
it in 20
he had a
seconds.
special athlete. That was his strategy.
Yeah.
He did it in 20 seconds. It's wild. I mean, if I'm having Rod come cannonballing at me, I would run the other way.
I would make sure that damn bubble was blown up because that train is coming through, and I don't care how much bubble was between me and Rod.
If I were one of those bubble people, I'd be running out of his way. I'd be so scared of being tossed like we did see people just completely flip over with their legs hanging outside the top of the bubble.
Yeah, and there was some regular sized people in those bubbles.
Those are normal people.
Although there was one guy who was totally headhunting.
Well,
Hold on. There was a guy who went full force, flung himself at Rod, knocked him over. Another person who immediately when Busy started ran full speed and knocked her right on her ass.
I think the directive was immediately when the whistle is blown, every single contestant gets knocked immediately. Because it happened to everybody.
What is this, conspiracy, Nicole?
Yes. It happened to each person.
I think it was the same guy. And they had to get
a taste. Okay, well, they had to get a taste of, all right, this is how this game works. You're going to get knocked.
Yeah, but
you're not just going to run to the goal and score.
Right.
You got to get knocked.
You got to get knocked down. But that guy wasn't headhunting.
Knocked down.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out Chumbawamba. He was the guy who was headhunting was not hunting Angie. They knocked her down, but they did it gracefully or relatively graceful. She would have got thrown out of the bubble.
Pleading, please don't hit me.
I mean, it's the same day. It's probably only a couple hours after she nearly died doing the race car. So I can't imagine even having to run out there after and remember earlier that day too, Rod was doing the bike. He never even got off of it for the recycling challenge. But Luke, bringing it back to strategy, we all had kind of agreed that Rod and Leticia are probably going to go home because of a stupid not thinking issue. It's not going to be a physical challenge. It's going to be something that they haven't thought about. And I don't remember the last time Leticia did a challenge. I wonder if we're going to get to a final moment and Rod's not going to be able to do it. Totally. And Leticia is going to be forced to do it because they have not thought about it at all.
Well, she did the car one and she couldn't do it. Amber did hers.
Yeah.
And there was just, if you notice the subtle differences, which aren't really that subtle, of the way Amber was attacking the puzzle when she was trying to complete it versus Leticia was just kind of holding pieces and just
not even making a loop.
No.
Just squiggly lines everywhere.
And I think that's going to be the moment when the alliance breaks up.
Yep.
Danny decides it's time to run our own race and we have to say goodbye to them is when they'll pounce on it. An opportunity like that.
Would you then say the next two out are Yvonne, Melissa, and Sunny and Busy? That's it. Get rid of those two. You're gonna have the strong three and then the top two. And there you go. Then that's when you play your cards. That's when Danny plays his cards and separates the group.
There was a tease for next week's episode, and we do hear Danny in the back seat of the car saying, I think it's our day to run our own race.
They say that every time.
I don't know. Okay, before we go to our power rankings and cross the finish line, a final goodbye to the yellow team. Derek and Shelisa are eliminated. They finish in 8th place, and they leave us with this, that they had a great time, they had a great experience, and that they kept it together and they're proud of each other. And Josh, I think that fits them right into that great experience category that we thought they would be in.
Bye-bye. Nice to see ya. Thanks for running the race, but now we need to win the race. I mean, it's due. I did want to call out that I feel like this episode I saw another side of Shelisa. I mean, I thought they were maybe a little bit hard on each other most of the season, but she was like borderline rude to him this episode. Just calling him out and saying that he's tired. He can't do the soccer challenge. Oh, he can't do this. Oh, this can't happen. And I really didn't appreciate how really putting him down she was the whole episode. And yeah.
Well, don't forget, it was a Derek doing both roadblocks episode.
It was.
Couple teams, and it kind of dictated a very different leg than if they would have split it or the other partner would have done the challenges.
However, you still cheer on your partner in wanting to do well and wanting to support them. I just kept thinking that she just kept saying, well, he wasn't able to. Why did we lose? Oh, he didn't do well today, but I still love him, or that kind of thing. That's like, oh.
Or how about when he finally finished the puzzle, she goes over, looks at it, and was like, this is what you couldn't do? This isn't even that hard.
I loved it.
So did I.
Shout out Shelisa. Derek called himself a dummy after it took him 7 tries, 7 trips around that course. But we say goodbye to Derek and Shelisa, which brings us to our power rankings update. As of now, Josh's perfect card is off the board, and the gap between us and Josh has closed a little bit.
Good.
I had Derek and Shelisa 10th, so that's the biggest number to come off the board. But Josh still way out in front, crossing off his 6th place team, Derek and Shelisa. So Josh has a huge lead still with a low score of 30. I'm second with 43, and Nicole is third, having Derek and Shelisa in the 9 slot. She has 46. Who's ready to cross the finish line?
I'm crossing the finish line with this. I am ready for the ending to be exciting. Like, I felt like I knew in the beginning of the episode, it's going to be Derek and Shelisa. And it was so predictable. And I was just like, I felt like I could hear them give up in the beginning of the episode. And I'm missing even being tricked by editing. It's like, it's so vast of a difference between second to last and last that they can't even try to edit it to make it seem like it was close. So I'm hoping that next leg we have that back. Or
maybe a Team Philly John type exit where they're so far behind that they just get cut off.
Yeah, that'd be good too. I'll take
This is over.
over.
Shout out Philadelphia.
Absolutely not.
Crossing the finish line. It really is amazing to have competitors in competitive, well thought out challenges that actually have the ability to separate teams, challenges that actually challenge the teams to either work together and brings out all this strategy. I think that this was a great step forward in this season. I think this season needed this episode, and I hope it's a total slingshot forward towards the exciting ending that Nicole was hoping for.
Yeah, my crossing the finish line is actually a combination of both of those. I do feel like we kind of got rid of the last of the here for a good times, and now we are gonna get into the heat of it. We have all players. We also have all people that I enjoy watching. I think it's like I'm rooting for any one of them to do well, and I don't really want to see any of them go home. But the other thing I wanted,
Melissa?
yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know if I have any like. I know how strongly you guys felt about Kishori and that.
Leticia!
Yeah,
Oh my God, we said it at the same time.
but we don't have those, right? We don't have those people that are hard to watch. We have all of these players that are hopefully here to win. But agreeing with Nicole in watching the episode arcs, I still think that we're having issues with these interviews. They cut to the guy, Shane and Juan, maybe 30 minutes into the episode, and it was bright out behind them. And you're like, okay, great, they won. I won. I knew 25 minutes into the episode that they had already won. And at that point, like, where is this editing? Where's this arc? Where's this gameplay? It's kind of, and maybe I am analyzing it too much, but I want to be tricked. I want there to be storylines in here that actually makes this exciting. So I'm also hoping that we are having better gameplay, which is then gonna create better episodes, which is also gonna allow the teams that we want to win, more of us to root for them, and hopefully it gets even better because it's actually picking up, which is really exciting.
On that note, we will end there. Thanks for being here tonight, Nicole. Thank you, Josh. Thank you to everyone out there for listening and for your support. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on Instagram, YouTube. Check it out. Also, check out all the Survivor 46 content, tribalcouncilblog.com. Appreciate the support. And we will see you next week on the ReRACEables Podcast for episode 7. See you next week.